It was a quiet Tuesday morning in Los Angeles. The summer sun had already begun to warm the streets outside a modest apartment building in West Hollywood. Inside one of those apartments, 21-year-old actress Rebecca Schaeffer was preparing for an audition. Her script pages were spread across the table. She had rehearsed her lines the night before. This was another opportunity, another step toward the career she had worked so hard to build. Then came a knock at the door. At first, it seemed harmless. Just another fan, perhaps. Rebecca had received letters before. She was kind, polite, someone who genuinely appreciated the people who supported her work. She opened the door. Standing there was a young man who had traveled hundreds of miles to see her. Hours later, Rebecca would be gone, and Hollywood would never be the same. Rebecca Schaeffer was not just another television face. Born in Oregon in 1967, she was raised in a supportive family that encouraged her creativity. As a teenager, she began modeling, eventually moving to New York City to pursue bigger dreams. Her natural warmth and expressive eyes caught attention quickly. In 1986, she landed her breakout role on the sitcom My Sister Sam. She played Patty Russell, a sweet and earnest teenager who moves in with her older sister in San Francisco. The show quickly built a loyal audience, and Rebecca became a rising star. But those who knew her said she wasn't consumed by fame. She was thoughtful, intelligent, grounded. Friends described her as someone who still called home regularly, who talked about wanting to grow as an actress, not just be famous. After the show was canceled in 1988, Rebecca didn't give up. She began auditioning for more mature roles, determined to be taken seriously in Hollywood. By the summer of 1989, she was on the brink of something bigger. She had no idea someone had been watching her every move. His name was Robert John Bardo. A troubled young man from Arizona, Bardo had a long history of fixating on female celebrities. He had previously attempted to approach other public figures, believing he shared a personal connection with them. When he saw Rebecca on television, something shifted. He began writing letters to her, dozens of them. He watched her episodes repeatedly. In his mind, the line between reality and fantasy blurred. He convinced himself that Rebecca was more than an actress. He believed she was someone he knew, someone who belonged to him. Then came a turning point. In one of her film roles, Rebecca appeared in a scene that Bardo perceived as a betrayal of the innocent image he had built in his mind. To him, it shattered the illusion. His obsession darkened. Instead of letting go, he spiraled deeper. Determined to find her, Bardo hired a private investigator to obtain her home address. At the time, California's Department of Motor Vehicles allowed personal addresses to be accessed with minimal restriction. Within days, he had what he wanted: Rebecca's home address. It was shockingly easy. Bardo traveled to Los Angeles with a handgun. That morning, he knocked on Rebecca's apartment door for the first time. She answered. He introduced himself as a fan. She politely told him she was busy and asked him to leave. He walked away. But he didn't leave the city. Instead, he wandered for hours, stewing in his thoughts. In his pocket was the address he had worked so hard to obtain. In his bag was the weapon he had brought across state lines. Around noon, he returned. He knocked again. Rebecca, expecting perhaps a delivery or another visitor, opened the door. What happened next unfolded in seconds. A single shot was fired. Neighbors heard the noise and called for help. Rebecca was rushed to the hospital, but despite efforts to save her, she died later that day. She was 21 years old. The news spread quickly. A young actress, murdered at her own front door by a man she had never met. Cast members from My Sister Sam were devastated. Fans across the country struggled to understand how something so horrifying could happen in broad daylight. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a personal dispute. It was obsession. Robert John Bardo was arrested the next day after confessing to his sister. In court, his actions revealed a disturbing pattern of delusion and fixation. In 1991, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even as the trial concluded, larger questions remained. How could he access her address so easily? Why weren't there stronger protections against stalking? Rebecca's death forced lawmakers to confront those questions. At the time of her murder, anti-stalking laws were weak or non-existent in many states. Public access to DMV records meant that anyone with enough determination could locate a private home address. For celebrities, this was especially dangerous. But the truth is, it put everyone at risk. In the wake of Rebecca's death, California passed the nation's first anti-stalking law in 1990. Other states quickly followed. The Federal Driver's Privacy Protection Act was later enacted to restrict access to personal information in DMV records. Her tragedy became a turning point. Today, stalking is recognized as a serious criminal offense nationwide. Privacy protections for personal records are far stricter than they were in 1989. These laws were written in response to a young woman who never got the chance to grow older. It's easy to reduce a true crime story to headlines. But Rebecca Schaeffer was more than a case, more than legislation, more than a tragic statistic. She was a daughter, a friend, a young woman standing on the edge of her dreams. She loved acting. She loved learning. She was excited about the future. Her life was not defined by the man who took it. Instead, her legacy lives on in the protections that now exist because of her. Every time someone's personal information is shielded, every time a stalking case is taken seriously, every time a public figure can feel just a little bit safer, that is part of Rebecca's story too. Fame can create admiration, but when admiration turns into obsession, the consequences can be devastating. Rebecca Schaeffer answered her door on a summer morning in 1989. She could not have known that her kindness, her normalcy, would be met with violence. Her story reminds us of the fragile line between public life and private safety, and of the importance of protecting both. If this story moved you, make sure you like this video so more people can learn about Rebecca's legacy. Subscribe for more true crime stories that focus not just on the crime, but on the lives that mattered. Comment below. Do you think enough has changed since 1989? And turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story.